Good afternoon, one and all. Are you all hearing me?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Presenter of this afternoon, psychological clinician, Mr. Brandon Subero, Mr. Marlon Fields, first Vice President, and all other national officers elected and appointed. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. And welcome to Tutor's second edition of Sunday School. Today's session is entitled Coping with the Stressors of Remote Teaching. As we celebrate the month of the teacher, the Professional Advancement Committee, under the astute leadership of Mr. Marlon Fields, will be providing the membership with relevant and accurate information as we navigate through this new territory of online and distance learning. My name is Eka Maxey, and I have the distinct pleasure of taking you through this afternoon's program. I now invite the first Vice President, Mr. Marlon Fields, to bring you greetings.
Thank you, Eka. And welcome again to another version of another edition of our Sunday School. Again, I would like to thank you all for the interest that you have shown thus far in these professional development workshops. I will be short and sweet today because I really want us to get into the meat of the program this afternoon. So I will leave the introductions to Eka, but I would like to welcome, on behalf of the association, welcome to Mr. Brandon Subero, clinician expert with Elder Associates. I said that right, okay, brother? Yes, we always make the mistake of saying Elders Associates, right? But Elder Associates, really glad that you are able to make it with us today and to have that conversation with our teachers as we navigate this stressful time of the pandemic. In addition, with the whole change, we know change management is an issue by itself, and that whole dynamics of changing the way we normally would do our business, all right, from the face-to-face to remote teaching. So without any further ado, I turn you back to our MC, Ms. Eka McPhee.
Thank you, Mr. Fields. Our presenter this afternoon, as Mr. Fields would have said just now, Mr. Brandon Subero. Mr. Subero has over 4 years of exposure in the field of clinical psychology. While specializing in marriage and family therapy and pursuing his master's program, Mr. Subero was offered an early internship with a counseling service agency in Los Angeles. There, he gained a practical experience, completing over 1,000 counseling hours. Mr. Subero currently is an affiliated psychological clinician at Elder Associates Limited, seeing an array of clientele from individual adults, children, families, and couples dealing with different issues such as anxiety, depression, and conflict management, to name a few. Let us now welcome Mr. Brandon Subero to our virtual podium. Welcome, Mr. Subero.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate you all inviting me on. Can everybody hear me okay? I just want to make sure, because you know, it's part of it in itself.
Yeah.
I'm clear? All right, fantastic. All right, guys, so yes, so exactly what everyone said. Thanks a lot for inviting me, Marlon. So exactly that, we're going to be discussing how to manage this during this time. It's a stressful time period, it's a stressful year. And well, based on how we meet and the Prime Minister went yesterday, we have a little while to go again. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we could have a nice Christmas. All right, so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate through a PowerPoint. It's not going to take too long. It's about 10 minutes. But after that, we'll open the floor to some questions, and I'd love to hear what you'll have to say, all right? So let me just share my screen. Everyone see what's coming up? Fantastic. Okay, so I'm minimizing, so I wouldn't really be able to see you all too much. Okay, so basically exactly what we said. We're discussing leading in crisis, and we're trying to see how we could be navigating through the stresses of remote learning. I like to start with a quote all the time. And the first thing that I love to talk about is, if ever you'll come into my office, you'll see this quote many a time. It's, the curious paradox is when I accept myself just as I am, only then I can change. The interesting thing in this is I felt like it was so necessary in bringing this into the meeting today, because change is such a difficult thing. And people always think to focus on, okay, I just don't want to hear about this. I don't want to deal with the situation we are now. I just want it to change. However, in order for change to come, we have to understand where it's at, where we at, what the situation is at. So that's the only way change can come, is by fully analyzing and understanding and accepting what is going on in order for that change to follow. I felt this was a quote that was really, really fantastic. Carl Rogers is one of my favorite clinicians and psychologists. He specializes in, I would say, a person-centered approach. So he's very eclectic. He moves based on whatever the clientele wants. All right. So the outline for today is, so I can't see too much. Right, yeah. The outline for today is we'll be managing during a crisis. The second thing will be how to survive during a pandemic. And thirdly, we want to do how to communicate effectively. And all of these things are so important, dealing with daily life. And I think about it, when it is I saw it was Teachers Day, I think it was the 5th of October, I believe, earlier this month. I was like, wow, I can only imagine how much stress teachers go through during this this pandemic in itself, because you're accustomed with a community, you're accustomed doing stuff in school, and now we have to, it totally changed. Now you're actually carrying your work home. You probably were already, but now work is at home. So hopefully the outline that I give you all today will find a way how best you all can navigate throughout this situation and how we can start to manage during the change in itself. All right, so the first thing we need to do is to evaluate the situation. So when you're managing a crisis, a lot of times we want to just jump and try to change the situation. We have to evaluate it first and evaluate the situation as teachers. So right now, the situation that we're dealing with is we can't go in school. There's no way we could go in, we can't teach. So we have to deal with stuff at home. So what's going on? Wi-Fi is an issue, material is an issue. So understand all of these things that are problems that arise, and then say, you know what, how am I going to navigate with this? Other issues are, now everybody is home. Hold on, let's see messages. Yeah, now everyone is home. So if your kids are home, spouses are home, partners are home, you have a lot of stuff to manipulate and navigate. So take into account all of these things before it is you get frustrated, and just try to understand it at first. Secondly, you have to set clear boundaries and realistic expectations. So a clear boundary would be, okay, I see this is the situation that I'm dealing with. It is, I'm home, I have an entire class to teach, and I still have to take care of my children at the same time. Clear boundaries. Set a clear boundary. Okay, kids, I cannot be distracted between 8 to 12. Again, that'll be tough, but you know, have to set the realistic expectation that if we deal with a toddler, they will come and they will distract us. I've seen some writing on the screen at times. I don't know if anybody has seen that. It's not me. I'll just say that. Yeah, so set clear and realistic expectations. That's really, really important. The boundary setting. Understand where it is you all want to be in the classroom. In a classroom setting, discuss that with your students. Let them know you don't want any distractions. You want to be able to manipulate the classroom setting based on certain time. Give space for questions, and give space for yourself to catch yourself during the class time as well, right? Thirdly, we have to seek opinions and support. So again, if I said you're no longer in the classroom setting, so you no longer have in school where you're walking down the hall, you're talking to your peers, you're talking to somebody else, you might lean on your principal for support, asking for certain things. You can't really, you might feel like you can't do that right now. You feel kind of alone, you feel isolated during this time. What I'll tell you is, it may feel that way, but you still have that sense of support around us. For example, we have tutor right now, which is now leaning this sense of support and always giving something for this continuing education aspect. So don't feel like you're alone in this situation and isolated. Seek support from peers, seek support from family members as well. Because dealing with kids at times can be challenging. So if it is you need to take a break, lean on your family members, ask for time. Thirdly, create a personal mission. And I love this one so much because this is something I use all the time to navigate how I'll carry about my month. You're creating a mission, what it is you want to achieve during this time. So you can have a short-term mission, you can have a long-term mission, do whatever is necessary for you to get by. So whatever mission could be is, I want to be able to accomplish X, Y, Z. I want to be able to totally understand how to set up a Zoom account because that is tough. I don't know how you're manipulating online learning and stuff, but I know for sure, the first time I had to go in Zoom, it was a little chaotic. So understand that that's a little mission you want to have, that is fine, that's fantastic. Lastly, try to be clear. Be clear with your students and be clear with yourself and what it is you want to accomplish. So in school, you'll have all your paperwork, you'll have everything organized for you. You pull your drawer, you know where to find things. Now, you're at home, so you're thinking, all right, how am I going to do this? And, as I have it online, how I could start to teach them online, how I could use tools on YouTube, how I could share the screen, how I could take your time. Slow it down, but be clear on what it is the message you want to send across. Try not to overcomplicate it too much, all right? Now we have to talk about surviving during a pandemic in itself. I know this is hard. So first thing is, this is what's important with change in itself, right? Is to recognize that COVID-19 is very upsetting, but it is temporary. The example I love to use when I'm discussing this is panic attacks. I'm not sure if anybody has ever gotten a panic attack or ever felt like a panic attack is coming on, but panic attacks feel never ending. They feel like a near-death experience. However, quite contrary, panic attacks only last about 10 to 15 minutes. Yeah, your heart racing, you're sweating, your hands sweaty, you feel like you're going to throw up, you feel like you're going to get a heart attack. However, it's a panic attack, and it is temporary. I know it may feel like this is never ending. However, this is a temporary thing. People are working on trying to find a vaccine. People are working on trying to get us back into schools. Come January, fingers crossed, we're back into school, we're back into our normal routine, right? However, I don't want you all to overcompensate and start to worry too much and start to get anxious. And sometimes even that anxiety can now start to transcend into a sense of depression. Further, when you start to talk, you can ask me any questions on those. I'd love to go into detail about that. Secondly, recognize your cognitive distortions. We'll go into that right after the slide, where you can get a better idea what a cognitive distortion is. And lastly, I want us to maintain a routine. Routines are extremely important during any crisis situation, especially online learning. Create a routine, understand what it is. From 8 to 12, you have class. After that, at 1, you're going to take a break. At 2, you're going to start to mark papers. But by 4 o'clock, you're done. You're not even going to see anything about your local school work. You're going to be working with your kids if they need help with homework. You're going to organize dinner. You're going to do something to relax. After a certain time, create a routine and try to stick to it. Don't switch it up too much, because once it is, you start to have, I'll do that later. I'll try to do this next time, or what, and I start to put off things and change that routine. That's when it becomes a little problematic. All right. All right. So what is a cognitive distortion? Right. A cognitive distortion is a irrational thought that tends to have no evidence. Right. So a thought that makes no sense, but we wild up ourselves so much that we feel like it is true. Right. So one, I'll just give 3 so you can understand. And the reason why I say it's important, I feel like it happens during class time as well. So the 3 that I used was, one is disqualifying the positive. You'll have your first ever Zoom class, and you're like, wow, that was fantastic. And however, one student was given trouble. One student was challenging. One student was kind of taking off the camera and probably doing cursing, or a lot of stuff I see it on social media now. And now you say, you know what? That entire Zoom thing was real hard. I can't do Zoom again. So basically what you just did is, you disqualified everything that was fantastic about the class. You just disqualify it and you just focus on this one aspect. That's what we call disqualifying the positive. The second thing is fortune telling. So fortune telling basically is let me see. When you start to, you feel like you know what is going to come. So you have a preempted sense of what it is the class is going to be like. You know, before you log in, oh God, this boy gonna come and harass me, this boy gonna, and you go in there with already a sense of anxiety and tension and frustration before the class even starts. So once you lead with that, it tends to know that will take a turn for your entire day for how the class is run. And then it might start to lash out with the people at home. And somebody will ask you a simple question too, might kind of bite back. So that's because we're trying to fortune tell. That's a cognitive distortion. So sometimes go in there with a clear mind. Go in there with a, you know what, I start the day right, clear mind, understanding, meet people where they are, meet the students where they are, be kind to yourself, right? Last one is catastrophizing. So basically, this is like seeing the worst outcome no matter what. So you only, before you even started or organize school, you're in your bed, you're saying, I don't want to do this again. You're thinking just the worst thing can happen. The internet going to drop again. This going to happen. So you already start to feel a sense of anxiousness and frustration before the class has even started, before your day has even started. So these are the things where, in order to try to avoid these, we now have to say, okay, how can I realize it? So notice that it's coming and realize, you know what? I've been unfair to myself. The class may have been disrupted. This one person may have done X, Y, Z, but actually it was a good day. You know, try to do those things where you can catch yourself having a cognitive distortion, having the irrational thought, and then move forward after that. Again, as I said, maintain the routine is extremely important in anything that we do in schooling, because you see what school used to do as well is a sense of structure, and it's very classic conditioning. So you hear a bell ring, you know you're organizing, you know what to do, your next class. However, no, we really have a bell ring. Oh, I mean, you can set up a bell if you want to ring, but it's a little challenging. So you don't have that sense of structure as you would have in school, but try to create that sense of structure as your home. Lastly, this I feel is, I guess, one of the most important elements in dealing with remote learning, dealing with your students, dealing with your peers, dealing with yourself, and dealing with your children. You know, how do we communicate effectively during this time? The reason why I pull this up is communicating effectively, it tends to have an effect. It tends to have an effect where, miscommunication, it tends to have an effect where people misunderstand us. They feel a sense of frustration with us because of something we may be saying but not actually saying. When I say that is, you might be angry and you're lashing out, but you're not really angry. You're feeling a different type of emotion. You're probably feeling frustrated or stressed. And before we express the stress, we start to express the anger. So what I want to do is so we can try to communicate effectively in order to get what it is we want from others, and so that we wouldn't feel disappointed as well. So, as it says here, work-life balance in itself is stressful, pre-pandemic. So you can imagine now how difficult that is. You can imagine before you started driving in traffic home, you're commuting here, you're doing this here, you have this student, you have this on your mind. Now, you're just, everything is home. It is tough. So I can imagine how difficult it would be teaching right now. How difficult it would be teaching and parenting right now. How difficult to even be with your partner right now with intimacy situations. Because you know, sometimes in school, the children go to bed at a certain time, now we have a lack of structure. So it's very difficult, with, especially with intimacy with your partner. So we see a lot of challenges going on with your partners because of the COVID situation, you don't have that sense of attachment so much anymore, which is quite contrary to what people would think, right? You'll think that because you're home, you should be communicating a lot more and interacting a lot more. Not really, sometimes they can be standing on each other's toes too much. So what I want to do after this next slide, it will be showing you how to try to effectively communicate with somebody using some tools, which I feel like is extremely beneficial in anything that I do. If you're talking to a boss, talking to a friend, talking to your child, those things are extremely helpful. So the last phrase underneath, I always leave with that. I tell everybody to try to be vulnerable, be authentic, and be transparent. It takes courage to be vulnerable. It takes a sense of courage to say, you know what, I don't know what I am doing. I need help. That's courage to be vulnerable. But I also want you to be authentic. Be yourself. Don't try to be something that you're not during this difficult time in remote learning and trying to organize classes and talking to parents. Don't try to see like you have it all together. You know, say, you know what, this is tough. This is transparency. It's a tough time. I find it real hard to do this. So you know what? I'm going to see how I can get and lean on shoulders to help me during this situation. So again, be vulnerable, be authentic, and try to be transparent as best as possible. You hear me? Okay, great. All right, so this is the non-violent communication we're talking about. So you see in the sheet on the left-hand side, so, and then you see in the list of stuff on the right. So first I'll just kind of describe the sheet a little bit. So as I said before, anger is generally a secondary emotion. Anger has a place. Anger has a place in where we are, in any emotion that we express in. However, it could be misunderstood a lot of times. So that's why anger is like the top of the iceberg. I know you all probably saw Titanic already. So you know how big the iceberg was underneath. So that's exactly it. Underneath anger, there are so many more emotions that come to the surface before the anger. So try to understand what it is. So I'll tell you from now. So in violent communication, you'll see a lot of times is you'll get upset. You'll see, it was, let's say, Jimmy, you're not paying attention in class. You have to pay attention in class. And that in itself can be very, one, frustrating for you because your pressure no reason. Jimmy now, because he feeling attacked. He only want to lock off. We don't understand what's going on with Jimmy on his end. So let's see how we could try to have a different way we could have this conversation where one, our stress levels not going to be peaking, as well as Jimmy wouldn't feel too bad about the situation, right? So this is how we'll do it. First thing is you have to state an observation, which is just a fact. Observations have no opinions, no judgments. So an observation is, so for example, Jimmy, I observed or I realized you're putting on and off your camera. Your camera's coming, switches on and off. Observation is a fact, right? Express your feeling after that regarding the observation. This is an important part because people tend to say, use statements and criticize. You know, you're always doing this, you're stressing out, Jimmy, I don't want this. And that's again attacking, that's attacking a character, like pointing fingers. Sometimes I say you. What I would like to do is try to see how we can use more I statements during this time. So I feel followed by a feel. A lot of times we say I feel like you. And I will tend to go into that criticism again. So express your feelings. So a feeling will be, I feel worried. You know, I feel concerned, Jimmy, that you'll be missing out on the class and everybody else will be moving forward. So how could I help you during this time, right? Express a need. So Jimmy, I need for you to try to keep your camera on as best as possible during the duration of the class. And then lastly, you make a request. Request, okay, so I wanted this from 8 to 4, 8 to 12, 8 to whatever time. You try your best to keep your camera on because it's really important for you to be paying attention and not one distracting yourself and distracting the class. Once we go through these 4 steps, and it's just an example based on the class in itself, right? These examples, this technique can be very useful, especially when we're dealing with our kids. When we're dealing with your children, you know, you're in a class and they come to distract you and they're disturbing you. You know, leave it there for a little bit, you know, say excuse. You know, again, is a realistic expectation. You have to expect they're going to disturb us at times. So you know what? And then have the same steps. I observe what you feel, what it is that you need, and request that. All right, so wrapping up now. So yesterday, funny enough, was World Mental Health Day. And I was like, wow, the irony that this was right before the World Mental Health Day was right before this thing for Twitter. I said, you know what, I have to mention. So the theme, there's a theme every year. The theme last year, I think, was suicidality. This year, the theme is kindness. And I felt it was so important to bring that up today because you'll feel a lot of pressure on yourself. You'll probably shame yourself and guilt yourself and do shameful stuff to yourself and like negative self-talk. Be kind to yourself. Try to take deep breaths. Try to do something that you love. I know it's tough going outside, but try to find something like to eat. Try to take time to watch a show, but be kind to yourself during this time. Also be kind to the ones around you, because they themselves are probably struggling similar to you. So kindness is extremely important. I love the fact that this was the theme for 2020. The irony. So it's exactly that. Be kind to yourself. Be emotionally open to your students. Tell them that remote teaching is an entirely new thing for you and that you're learning something new each day you're holding a class. Ask them for their help and understanding while assuring them you are doing your best to support their learning journey. Create a safe space, not only for your students, but for yourself. You see the safe space aspect, this is the boundary setting as well. The boundary setting outside the area, create a safe space. If you have to use PVC and curtain and create a space where it's just you, so you wouldn't have distractions, do that. You know, give those examples to parents as well, for the students, for your kids and your students. Anything for you to have a safe space where you could, as best as possible, be able to have your optimum ability to express yourself, to be the best teacher that you can be during this time. It's natural to feel overwhelmed with all things expected from you as teachers. Start really small. Try it again. Try to don't overcomplicate it. Don't try to make it too complex. You know, once you pick that up, move to the next step. With kindness, creativity, and courage, you can make remote learning a wonderful experience for yourself and the young minds that you are moving. On that note, I just want to tell you thank you very much for listening. And I'll open the floor for any questions. I'm going to remove my share screen so that you all will be able to, I guess. Thank you very much.
Mr. Suberu, for such a practical and beneficial presentation. As we now invite participants to field questions, please keep in mind that our time is limited, and therefore we ask participants to ask only one question. If we have sufficient time, we can then entertain further questions. Please use the raised hand icon if you would like to ask a question. I will now hand over this segment to Mr. Seal.
Thank you, Eka. Thank you a lot. So we, as the MC, Ms. McCree, would have shared, we have two options before us. You could either type your question, we open the chat so that you can type your question in the chat, and also helping us with this section, you have the ability to ask your question, as Ms. McCree would have indicated. Just raise your hand and members of the PAC would assist in unmuting your mics, because we recognize for the control, we limited that function in Zoom currently. So feel free, raise your hand, ask the question, or you can type your question in the chat as you speak. So, any questions? Okay, I know Brandon is good, right? I don't think he's that good. Okay, so we have one question there.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I'm not very bright. I don't know how to do this too well. This is my first time on a Zoom meeting. How do teachers respond to parents? How do teachers respond to parents like that?
Pardon?
I said I don't know how to do this very well. I don't know how, this is not my kind of thing. I live in the bush. How do teachers respond to parents like this? Parents like me.
So you mean like, you're being a teacher then? So you're being a parent in that sense. How does a teacher respond?
How would a teacher respond to a parent like me?
How should a teacher respond? So in a time like this, one, firstly, understanding. You know, if this is the case, you have to understand every situation is different for everyone. While teachers, we want the best for the students themselves, but at the same time, we have to also understand people aren't as fortunate or as capable to have the wits to do the Zoom class or the wits to have any remote learning tools. So now we have, as a teacher, while it might be difficult in letting go of a situation, feeling like you're defeated or you feel like you lose the opportunity with a student, you also have to realize certain things you can and cannot control. So the best thing that we can do at that time is probably tell the parents, mom, dad, I understand that we are challenged for him to get into class. Is it possible for us to mail you a booklet, mail you something where you could use some other alternative measure of learning and making sure that these assignments are completed at a certain amount of time in order for the child not to miss out on that task, on that what everyone else is learning at that time. So yeah, I get that. That's a tough one because if it is we don't have the tools and the services required and necessary for the online classes, I could see the parents and the students having a difficult time with the teachers and trying to get everyone into class. So hopefully that kind of helps as best as possible.
All right, Brandon, we have a question in the chat. What advice can you give to teachers who may already be feeling overwhelmed?
Okay, first advice, feel free to come into our office at any point in time, make an appointment, and you'll have a clinician be able to meet whatever needs and stuff that are coming up. But if you already feel overwhelmed, a lot of time we have to do things, especially during this time, to cope. And how can we cope during this time? So it's a lot of breathing exercises, a lot of realizing, okay, trying not to escalate things too much away already. Yeah. So like an example that I always feel, especially during this time, is I feel like a sense of tightness whenever I see numbers going up. So you feel overwhelmed in itself. And then I have to, how your clients are going to respond to that when they come in and talk. So as teachers, you're already extremely overwhelmed. What about taking time for yourself? Saying, you know what, is the kindness? What about between 8 and 12, you really put down your work after a certain time? Tell yourself, you know what, I'm going to just watch a show today. I'm going to just have a cheat day in eating wise. I'm going to do something where I am not going to further increase this anxiousness or overwhelmed feeling. Or also, lean on people, support. Trinidad is a very community-based society, and as teachers, I'm sure you'll have to navigate with a lot of other teachers as well. And we have tutors, we have services that are available, so don't feel too alone in the situation. If we feel overwhelmed, try to navigate in a way where you don't do that too much, that you're trying to lean on others so you could not feel a sense of isolation. And hopefully that can help. But please, again, call in, we organize appointments, even phone sessions, we are available via phone. If it is you need us at any point in time, we have a hotline and tell us, please feel free to reach us at any point in time.
Okay, Brandon, we have from our Tobago officer. So, but let me I have an opportunity now to welcome into the room our Tobago officer, Mr. Braden Roberts. And also in the session today is our second vice president, Ms. Carla Robinson Thomas. All right, so we have some dignitaries in the house, and we want to give Mr. Roberts an opportunity to ask his question now.
Yes, good afternoon all. So some of the complaints I usually get from some of the teachers. Now teachers, some teachers are fearful of being judged. And we have some peers. Now the segment here spoke about us managing our emotions and so on. But we have to be mindful of the emotions of the parents. Now, some parents are trying to manage their emotions as well, and they may come across to some teachers aggravating a situation that could be better managed. what would be the advice for such teachers? Because we had a case as far reaching where the Secretary of Education went on complaints of parents to make what I would say is an unfortunate statement regarding teachers and their efforts. I also had one particular teacher who, despite going beyond, there would be this one parent who would try their best to make some kind of mischief out of the efforts. The teacher went as far as to say that they feel to just stop. What would be the advice for teachers who have that kind of feeling?
Yeah, that's okay. Definitely, that's something that's challenging in itself. Advice based on that, it's, once it is we know efforts that we're giving out, we know what we are trying to do, we know what we are capable of doing. You have to try to, this is the cognitive distortion aspect that we were talking about, like disqualifying the negative aspect, disqualifying the positive, and just focus on the negative. What we need to do is actually say, you know what, look at it holistically. Yes, it might be overwhelming. Yes, it will be a one parent, but it's just that. It's one parent in an entire situation. It's one parent of the many students that it. Realize that this is one area where you may need to put a little extra, I'll put it like a little extra niceness or kindness with the parents. But at the same time, don't allow that to overwhelm you too much. Because these are people, I always, how I navigate with situations like that, I try to say, something's going on there. Something, they aren't okay. They are probably stressed. They are overwhelmed. It has to be that reason why they're coming at you. So hopefully by trying to realize those cognitive distortions, trying to realize that, hey, I kind of disqualifying all the positive things that are actually going on and feeling overwhelmed and realizing that a lot of these students are fantastic. The other parents I can engage with really well. It's just this one thing and realize that it's just this one area. The other part of it is, as teachers, lean on those that are superiors and have that difficult conversation. So remember, discuss the effective communication, the observation, the feeling, the need, and the request. If it is at any point in time a teacher feels slighted, they feel like a lack of support, unsupported during the situation, go to that superior person, say, I observe. So I realize, principal person, head of department, I realized they kind of came down on me based on the situation with the parents. I feel unfairly treated. I feel overwhelmed. I feel disappointed. I feel disappointed in your reaction because XYZ. I was expecting more support and express that feeling. Then express the need. So what is your need? They might need clarity on a situation. They might need a little clarity on where you all stand between you and the head of department. And say, you know what? I need an understanding of what is my role, what is expected of me. I need clarity, I need support during this time. And then make that request. So then you request, you know what? So I hope that the next situation that this happens, you as a head of department, you as a principal, you as whoever you are in that position, I hope that yes, you'll be there next time and request that. Because that next time this happens, I want support because I'm trying my utmost best. So that's the clarity when I'm trying to bring across. Hopefully, that's the effective communication because I can imagine in situations like that, especially hot blood, you'll snap one time. You'll go straight into that anger and you'll start to argue. Or you might go in the other realm and they shut down. You might get defensive and you know what? Isolation. And that's the next thing, that's stonewalling. That's putting up a block where you ain't taking it on anymore, you're running away from the situation. But the reason why I say to try to do the effective communication is these areas will pop up in your life at some point in time. If it's not just this situation, something else will come up with a difficult situation, a difficult conversation, and you want to be able to face it. You don't want to be running from this one to the next one to the next situation. And try your best to, I'm not seeing somebody saying the message may not be received, and that is true. And then we have to go into other realms of, changing our expectation, because then we're expecting people to respond exactly how we want them to respond. Change expectation, say, you know what, I realize by going to this is not going to happen. This is not going to work. And then after we try those steps and realize nothing has changed, then we could go to the other steps. Then we could go to, maybe this not working, maybe I'll try something different. But I want us to be able to tick off boxes before we go to that final result, that final step, that ultimate decision that we come to. Hopefully that kind of help any situation, Robert.
Okay, Brandon, we also have other dignitaries in the house, so I want to give a shout out
Nice.
to the chairman of the St. George East District, Miss Amelia Douglas Adams, and the person also, the IRO North, Mr. Kerry Bruns is in the house, so we want to put our hands together for him. And finally, the person who is asking the question, whose hand is up right now, our Teacher of the Year 2019-2020, Ms. Rhonda Jones.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I'm not concerned. Good afternoon. I'm concerned, to be a teacher to be controlled, but to be the parents with a lot of children is attempt. And the audience trying to withdraw whatever device. Allow children. But it's angry, but the children is trying to be controlled. How we not really, what should I say, angry because we're trying to get the camera. Some of them not smart, to be quite honest. You know, back the book or handing back, God, they were done it for the child. How do we deal with allowed child?
Okay, so Rhonda, we say this. It was very difficult. Connection issue going on. So I didn't hear the question. I probably heard like little pieces and not enough where I could understand too much of what the question is in itself. Is it possible for us to probably type it in the chat so I can read it off instead? Because I wasn't hearing it too well. Apologies that I couldn't make it out.
Yeah. So while Rhonda responds in the chat, I hope she does. Again, I would like to recognize Miss Patrina Junker, the chairman of the Tobago district. She is in the house. All right. Any other questions?
I actually see a question in the chat, if you don't mind me just addressing it. Because one I feel is is important.
Okay.
The question I see is, what can I tell teachers who feel like whatever they do is not enough? So I'll say this. What you all do in itself, the fact that you all even get up, that you all put on this Zoom, try to navigate sessions, try to do all of these things, that is enough. Being present at times is enough. I know it may feel overwhelmed and you might feel like what I'm doing right now makes no sense. What's the point in carrying on? What's the point in doing this? If we allow those feelings to overcome us, we'll kind of be stuck. I don't want us to be stuck too much. I want us to be able to see how, understand the situation, how could I try to move forward? So I don't want us to get stuck in that situation where you don't feel good enough. Because that good enough feeling is a core belief situation. That's not we question a sense of self. And if it is we don't feel a sense of good enough, then okay, what can I do to improve that? What can I try to do? How can I try to improve a sense of self? Is it that a lot of times I tell people is write down certain things to prove the fact, to discourage this idea that I'm not good enough. Because that good enough feeling that's in your mind a lot of times, right? As an interpretation, as a cognitive thought. Write it down and see what it is you're not good enough at. See what it is that we take off today in classes. Am I able to put on this? Am I able to communicate effectively with students? And question, I say put those thoughts on trial. Try to navigate and say, okay, how true is that statement? How true is it that I'm not being good enough for these students? And then bring clarity on how you feel about it. Because once it is you put it on paper, especially, and you look at your thoughts and realize, wait, I'm being a little harsh on myself. I'm not being kind to myself. Then you realize that, yeah, we are being a little rough. We have that little cognitive distortion. So yeah, so I want to touch on that now.
Okay. Brandon, Miss Eka McPhee, our MC, she has two questions for us.
So,
Hi, Brandon. Two things. One, you mentioned earlier about a hotline. Can you please give us that hotline, that number for the hotline, please?
so, okay. So it's the same number for elders in itself. We generally have it goes directly to the number. I have the number on the screen.
And the other question, can I ask the other question? Yes. You mentioned earlier in your presentation about panic attacks and other anxious behaviors. At what point do you think that a teacher should seek professional help?
Okay, that's a good question. I tell people any point in time. You could feel like you have no panic coming on. You could feel like you feel overwhelmed at any point in time. Please come and seek any sense of help. But when I say you realize like the snapping, you realize that you're no longer being authentic, you're no longer being yourself. Then it's like, okay, what is happening to me? What is happening to my body? Am I becoming overwhelmed by this situation? I tend to feel it a lot of times with anxious feelings. Different areas you're feeling your neck, just like neck tension, you're feeling your hands. So it's not only about a feeling within the stomach and in your mind and the idea of anxiousness, but you're also feeling extremities, you're feeling your head might feel like you're getting a lot of headaches. And we tend to, there's a little stigma against the mental health aspect. So we tend to run straight to a doctor. You run straight to GP and say, I'm having headaches and I feel something going on. And then sometimes you'll see how many times before letters will come in with the GP saying, is anxiety, is anxiousness, is feeling of overwhelmed, is these different things that especially people are facing during this entire pandemic situation. So that's what I mean. So try to, any point in time is good to come in. There's no right or wrong time to come in. It's too late. I don't want to come too late at times, but as I said, it's never too late aspect. When you come in, you come in. Whatever's coming up, feel free to come in. To answer the first question, our number is 622-6594. So it's 622-6594. So that's the number for us. And anytime, if it is, the office hours are between 8 and 4. And once it's before 8 and after 4, the number goes directly to the hotline in itself. All right?
All right. Brandon, the first, Miss Eka McPhee was actually our Teacher of the Year 2018, I think it is, 2018, 2019. And the person who is asking the next question was the Teacher of the Year before her. All right. So Mr. Benjamin, he has his hand up. And so we will unmute the mic for Mr. Benjamin.
Sure.
Good day, colleagues in education. Good day, Mr. Brandon Subero. I have this question. One of my parents, it's not relating to me as a teacher, but personally, but in terms of a teacher responding to a parent whose son is saying to him at 5 years old, he's not ready for this kind of online learning. He wants to be able to go and meet his friends and play with his friends. This is not school. How am I to engage him in such a way to bring to understanding that, yes, we are not in school in the physical sense of it, but we are still trying to adapt or bring that essence of school-related life in this forum. Because to me, I was taken aback, a 5-year-old child having that kind of understanding to state, that he don't believe this is school because he's not accustomed to this reality that he's living in. How do you engage the child or the parent in making that connection or bridging that gap in this pandemic or in this new normal? Thanks.
Um, Firstly, what a brilliant child, because it feels like that. The ability to articulate that in itself is fantastic. You know, that it to feel normal. So it's like, why would I want to continue this? This is not school. This is not the aspect of school. However, education has to continue. Things have to continue. We can't exactly the change aspect. We can't be stuck in this situation. So an answer to that, what I often give is two things actually, because there's one is what a teacher could do, but there's also the responsibility of the parents in themselves. So the parent now has to, it's something we call go down to your level. So go down to the eye level of the child in itself. So firstly, you have to meet that need that the child is having, that expression, the fact that they don't feel like this is school. They don't have their friends. They don't have X, Y, Z. It is not a school situation. I don't feel fun learning. Go to them and first acknowledge that. Acknowledge it and appreciate them for being able to express it. So we have a culture to kind of negate it and push it down and get upset and say, no, you have to go to class. Try to navigate it a little differently. Understand where they're coming from first and then come with your approach. So I say as a parent, express the frustration, validate the emotion that the child is having. Say, yes, it sucks. It's sticky. It's not the same how we used to. You don't get to, you get to play with your friends. However, this is important. Education is important. You probably want to as 5, but let's see how we can now do stuff to motivate you to go to class. So I always say is, I tell people, especially at the age of 5, is to create sticker boards. So you have a sticker for every time you attend class, every time you answer a question, every time you pay attention. So as parents, you can now create a Bristol board, a paper, or anything where now your child can feel a sense of accomplishment. So you're making it now a task and something they could achieve, something fun for them to do. So now you're saying, all right, cool. If you attend class, you're getting this sticker. If you attend class, you're getting to put this up. If you answer these questions, if you're able to communicate well in class, you're able to participate in class, X, Y, Z is happening. Now as a teacher, we now have to try to, there's a change aspect. So we are accustomed with, sometimes we might have a whiteboard, we might have a blackboard, and we have the material in front of us. Now as teachers, we have to now change that aspect. You have to manipulate that. You might still be able to do this and have a whiteboard behind you and function, but as well as you have to implement different measures to keep attention. So before in class, you might snap a finger and they get attention. Now, you could snap, they didn't really care because they're probably playing on their phone or they're probably playing a new game and realize it's Among Us or something on their laptop. So it look as though they're there, but they're really there. What we have to do is, how could we make it engaging? How could we now give responsibility to these students? Say, hey, okay, I'm looking for you to give me a video on YouTube about XYZ topic, and I would love to see what it is your take on that. And you bring it and you present it via that. Let them share the screen, let them do XYZ. As teachers, try to see how we could play games or something to manipulate, something to keep them active and keep their attention. So as a teacher with a 5-year-old, it's tough, in itself, realize that how to even sit down still at home because they can't comprehend this idea of, I in my house and I learn in school and I have to get up 8 o'clock, I'm going anywhere. What's the point in this? So we have to give them a little something to push. So started with something different, something, as I said, something clear, not too complex, something easy to navigate, a little song, something that they like, but somewhere they could feel encouraged in coming back day after day after day. Because before, school was the sense of structure. The parents drop them off, you start school, whatever. Now we don't have that sense of structure. So we now have to create a sense of enjoyment in the entire situation. So we have the online, let's see how we could have something fun. Let's see how we could have a way where they could participate with us. And it's not the onus, not only on us, they could pull up something they could show you. Because trust me, that 5-year-old probably know to pull up a Zoom meeting faster than us. So try and see how they could help us out, how they could help us during this entire situation. Learn from them as well. Hopefully that helped in the answer as well. Man, I see a question from, I think this is the question Rhonda was trying to ask in the chat. It's, how do we deal with parents who continue to interrupt your session by always answering for the students, not allowing them to try, and you do not want to get angry? Oh, that's a good question. So there are, as we call it, adult conversations, children conversations, adult-child conversations. So this question itself is an adult conversation. This is where, as a teacher, we now have to have this adult conversation with the parent themselves. Trust me, conflict is not my area at times, but sometimes we have to make it difficult conversation in itself. So this way, you know what? Hey, they hear mom do it a few times. They just make mention, hey, I really want the students to participate, but we're not trying to jab too much. I would say the person respond, hi, miss, whatever your name is. Thanks for helping out, but I really want to see if the students could try to answer your son, your daughter could answer the question. And after that, have a conversation with the parents. You know, have a conversation in the same, again, in the effective non-violent ways of communication. What you're observing, what you realize you're doing, what it is that you're feeling, what it is that you need from them, and you make the request.
Hey, you're seeing the IR?
Yeah. Hopefully that's helping that answering that one, Rhonda.
Thank you for your responses, Mr. Subero. I see that we have an IR question in the chat, and I think right now Mr. Seals is trying to engage one of the persons present who may be able to respond to that. Although today our focus was on coping with the stressors, of course we would entertain the question because at the end of the day we are tutor. So our second vice president, Ms. Curla Robertson Thomas, will respond to the question in the chat. You can go ahead, Curla.
Okay, hi, good evening, good afternoon to all. Eka, is that the question about the school that had the departmental meeting?
Yes, it is, yes.
Unfortunately, that was not brought to our attention before, but all the teachers needed to do, if the school was not budging, then an appeal should have been made at the level of supervision, because we got permission from the CEO for all schools from ECC straight through to secondary schools to have the day off so that all teachers could attend the convention. So if the HOD and the principal of the school were not respecting that, had we known that before, we would have treated with it at the level of supervision or above. So that has gone now. The best tutor can do, if the person would want to contact our office and identify the school for us, we can raise it as an issue with the PS when we sit at those meetings and continue to remind the DSS and the PS that on the days that we have such permission to have the regular school stand down for our activities and it was been granted, then all persons should respect that and teachers should not be penalized for not attending one or the other. Okay.
Thank you, Kula. Do we have any further questions? Okay, so thank you again, and we would end with this. Colleagues, we have come to the end of our program for this afternoon. Sincerest gratitude to our presenter, Mr. Brandon Subero, for taking time out on your Sunday afternoon to ensure that teachers are informed and can actually cope with our present day stressors. Thank you to Mr. Seals and the Tutor Professional Advancement Committee for the planning and the execution of today's program. A special thank you to you participants and colleagues who took time out to be present at our session. I now hand over to Mr. Seals for any closing remarks that he may have. Have a good afternoon, all.
All right. So thank you, Eka. Again, I would like to thank Brandon. You did an awesome job. Thanks the time, the sacrifice of time. and effort on a Sunday. We are speaking about work-life balance, but you still were able to give us some of your Sunday evening. Also, I would like to recognize another Teacher of the Year, member of the PAC. You know, sometimes you are not, the prophet isn't recognized in his own country, right? Mr. Nicholas Cooperdees is a member of the PAC, so I'd like to acknowledge him as a past Teacher of the Year. So with those words, I would like to say thank you everyone for coming out today, and rest assured that next week, Sunday, we'll be looking at the topic of reimagining the future. So we know as teachers, we have often be engaging ourselves in Zoom versus the question of Zoom versus Google Classroom. And for education, that is really the wrong question to be asking. We really should be focusing on what is the objective, and then we look at the tools that will help us get to our objective. So Mr. Lyle Waldron will be helping us navigate those questions next week, Sunday. So again, thank you very much for coming out, and do have a productive week. Bye, everyone.